Good morning. This is Rick, with his squeaky floorboards. In today's video, I'm going to be doing some more pottering around the house. So here we are in my little craft room. Now I did make a little video a couple of days ago where I sat in here, I had all the green screen up and I was doing some experimental filming. And I'm in here today just trying to picture the future of what this room will look like. This is my spare bedroom and I've always used it as a creative space. Well, not always, but for the last few years and hopefully into the future, this is where I can do things, you know, hobby-wise, creative-wise. It's also my workplace. I've got my computers here and I just do all my editing and everything. But at the moment, I keep thinking more about this podcasting idea. And I've had several thoughts. I've done some research into how to do a podcast. And I've also had a change of subject as well. I know I've made a couple of podcasts so far, just testing the idea. And those two podcasts were both about UFOs. And I was originally thinking along the lines of doing a sort of UFO paranormal type podcast series. But on deeper reflection, to be honest, it's something I'm quite interested in. But there are loads and loads and loads of similar podcasts out there. And they are all much, much better than anything that I can produce. So I had a really good sort of ponder about what is it? I mean, I love the idea of just doing the podcast, just the act of doing it, sitting down, having a little chat, just me and a microphone and a listener. And I don't know, I mean, I do like voiceover as well, sort of professionally, that's my job. So I thought it would be kind of nice to branch out and extend that. And the one thing that if you're going to do a podcast of any description, you need to kind of be a bit of an expert in something, or you need to be experienced in something that you can talk about, that you have some experience with. And for me, the most experience I have in anything is living the single life in the UK. And I thought that could be an interesting little podcast. I could just, you know, I'm not talking about doing anything on a sort of a massive grand scale, but just the idea of sort of pottering and just nattering about life in the UK and living alone and, you know, living with a slightly introverted mindset and, you know, all of the nuances and everything that comes with that. I'm sure somebody somewhere might be interested in sort of tuning in. But I thought that is more of a sustainable topic because it's like unique to my situation, but there are others out there who probably live in similar situations. And it's kind of nice to, you know, not think that you're the only person on the planet that sort of lives this way. So I thought it might be a nice way of sharing. So that's I think what I'm going to do, and I'll have to come up with a name. I don't know, life of a single person living in the UK or something. I'll work all the details out a bit later. But what I was thinking, I mean, I could even have guests as well on the podcast, which would be nice. I've kind of got that going in one set of thoughts. And then my other set of thoughts is this room. When I built this as a craft room just under 3 years ago, I had all sorts of ideas about bringing technology and creativity together. And that's, you know, I went for things like cricket machine and other sort of technological things like the, you know, the printers, although I've always done printing anyway. But other little bits of technology that you can use to create things with. You know, I went for the 3D printing and everything as well, and the resin printing. Now I've given up on the resin printing. I actually sold all my equipment simply because although I made some cool stuff, I made stormtrooper helmets and amazing statues and things like that, and it was kind of good fun, but the overall experience of resin printing was very messy and smelly, and all of the surfaces that I made sort of an arrangement like this in the shed where I had work surfaces everywhere, and I had several resin printers, including a kind of a big industrial one, and it was great, but all of the surfaces were sticky, and your clothes stank of the resin, and it just, I don't know, I fell away from it after quite a while. I mean, it was useful if I needed to make little widgets or knickknacks or whatever. I could just throw them, put them on the computer, maybe even design them, and then load up the machine and hit the button, and then a few hours later that little knickknack or widget or whatever it is I needed was created. So it's like creating things out of nothing, well, out of a puddle of goo, basically. So it was good in that respect. But yeah, the whole process, it also held you to ransom a little bit. So if I had a large printing job going, and it was like a 20 or a 30-hour print job, you couldn't really leave it alone, because you had to constantly go in and check it every few hours, top up the resin, make sure it was okay, make sure it wasn't messing up. And so for a 36-hour print, you literally couldn't leave the house, and it was constantly there in the back of your mind. It was like, I don't know, it owned you for that amount of time. And also, you literally, every time you went out to the shed, you had to change your clothes. And I had my resin printing clothes, and I had my indoor house clothes, because the resin printing clothes would just start stinking of the resin after a while. Anyway, it had its disadvantages, but I'm glad I engaged with it for a while. But anyway, I sold off all the gear, including all the tables and everything, and my shed is now just a basic shed again. Anyway, long story short, what I'm thinking of is, if I make a more compact, a more condensed version of this creative space, because I still want the work surfaces, I still want a lot of the storage and a lot of the items. I'm still going to be putting them to use. I'm going to go through everything, figure out what it is I use and what it is I don't use, and the stuff I don't use or have never used, that's going to go in a box, and then that's going to go to a car boot sale. I was going to give it to the charity shop, but I know somebody who has a charity, and they do car boot sales to fund that charity. So what I can do is I can put all of the knickknacks in a box, give it to them, and then it's kind of giving it to charity anyway. But anyway, I want to condense this down to maybe just one side of the room, which will free up a bit of space over in this side of the room, and then I can build some sort of a podcasting thing. What I'm thinking is, especially if I want to have guests, it's like maybe a table, 2 chairs, 2 microphones, and then a little bit of podcasting equipment, and that's it. And that would sit quite nicely in that corner. Maybe a bit of decoration on the wall somehow. Don't know, just trying to visualize ideas at the moment. And in the same way that I visualized this room before I started, this was just an empty room, and then I visualized and made little sketches, drew what I wanted, and what I wanted was lots and lots of surfaces. So I've got I actually got 1, 2, 3, these are IKEA work surfaces, which are not as wide as your standard kitchen surfaces, I don't think. They're not actually as deep, which is great for a smaller room, because obviously they don't encroach further into the room and make the room feel smaller. And then I've got 2 little breakfast bars like bolted together here to make one large standing table. And this is a great table. You can stand here, it's just the right height, assuming you can see it. And there's my squeaky floorboards again. Also, a couple of people asked me, why have you got 2 cricket machines? Well, this was my original one that I bought, and after a couple of months, one of the features on it stopped working. It's the light. There's like a little light, and it scans the paper that you've just printed out, and then it will cut around whatever it is you printed out. Anyway, it stopped working on that one. It does everything else, but it's just that print to cut feature. Anyway, got in touch with customer support. They got me to do a few things, got me to make a little video of it, sort of trying to do what it needed to do, and it wasn't working. So they sent me another one. This was literally one that they sent me to replace that one, and they didn't want that one back. So yeah, I've got to do two things then, really. First of all, I need to start recording some of these podcasts just to make sure that I can actually make them work. So I'm probably going to do that, maybe even start today. And rather than sit down with a microphone, I might even just put one of my little over-ear mics on with a little recorder in my pocket and just wander around and see if I can turn that into a little podcast. But then I've also got to start thinking about, reducing this. There's so much stuff in here. I really need to start, getting that knick-knack box or that bric-a-brac box set aside and start putting things away. Start sorting out what's staying and what's going. I've got things like this. This is a profiler, and I bought this when I was doing one of my vans. One of my van builds, and to be honest, I've never used it, and actually it's a bit of a cheap, nasty one. It doesn't work very well, but I like the idea of it. If you're needing to cut something out, say I need to cut a piece of wood out to fit that corner. I mean, obviously this is right angles, but if it was a weird shape, maybe like the corner of the desk here, it's kind of a weird shape. So what you do is you just kind of do that and lock it off, and it actually gives you the profile of the shape that you want. So it's a clever idea, but I have never utilized it. But I know I was talking the other day about minimalizing and going minimalist, and this is one of the dilemmas. I mean, this takes up space in the house. It has a volume. Everything has a volume to it. Doesn't matter what it is. This is like an old water filter jug, and it takes up this amount of volume in the house. Now, you only have a certain amount of volume, physical, space in the house. So things like this and this, for me, in my mind, this encroaches on the available volume in the house. So if it's not a necessary item, if it's not something you're going to use, it's like, well, what do you do with it? It's kind of, you've got that situation where this is kind of too good to bin. It's a perfectly good quality, large capacity jug with a really good pouring spout that doesn't spill water out every time you try to pour from it, which so many jugs do. So in that respect, this is really useful, but it's just been sat on the side there for months and months and months and months and months. And it's like, I haven't touched it. I've got no physical use that I can think for it, but it's taking up this space. So sometimes you have to be a little bit brutal and say, yeah, I'm gonna, should I bin it or can I recycle it? They normally say on it whether you can recycle or not. Let's have a look. It doesn't say, although this is that really rigid plastic. I don't think they can recycle this. I can't see a recycle symbol impressed on it, so this may have to go in the bin, which is a shame. But yeah, same for this. This is, I mean, it's cheap and nasty, and it's a bit rubbish, and to be honest, it doesn't work very well. And again, it just takes up volume. So I think I'm just going to, I think you can recycle this one. It's actually got the, here you go, you've got the actual recycling symbol on there. So that can go in the plastic recycling. But I've got to do that with the whole of this room. So it's going to take me a long time, I think. It's going to take me weeks. And then I've got to start thinking about rearranging, maybe pulling this one down off the wall, because I've got these are units of 2, 4, 6, 8 of those square cubby holes. I've got 2 of those up on the wall. They're actually designed to go on the floor. They're the same as the ones down here, and you can buy them in 8s or 4s or 2. I think I've got a 4 and a 4 and a 4 there. I'm using them to hold up the surfaces. Obviously got an 8 and a 4 there, and then 2 8s, but you can also stand them upright. So what I'm thinking is maybe taking these down off the wall and then stacking them floor to ceiling in a different area. But there again, if I had a little podcasting place that I could set up, I could have a stack of those like against the wall and then put the chairs in front of them and like have them backlit, and then have some sort of fancy knickknacks in them, and then they'd make a kind of a nice little backdrop. So many possibilities, and this is what I've got to think about. I mean, part of me is actually thinking to just like literally empty the entire room out, take it to another room. I've got a spare bedroom which some of this will fit in, although it'll be pretty tight. But if I were to empty this entire room out and start again, you know, that thought is just coming into my head now. It might be easier, because quite often if I'm going to, let me just say for example, this is a box full of material. Now I've learned if I'm going to do some decluttering, the best thing you can do is to tip the entire box out, and rather than go through it and ask yourself, am I going to keep this? Am I going to throw it away? Am I going to keep this? Am I going to throw it away? What you do is you tip the box out, and then you say, right, all of this is going to be tipped away. Let me turn you around a little bit. So I'm going to throw, this is all fit for the bin, but I'll just go through and see if there's anything I want to save. And that change of attitude is really useful. It means you can be a little bit more brutal in deciding what to get rid of. I mean, like for example here, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a perfectly acceptable piece of cloth, but it has been sat in that box for years and I've never needed it. And the chances are, if I need a piece of cloth, it may not be, you know, this may not be suitable, and I'll generally end up kind of ordering a piece of cloth online specifically for whatever it is I need. So we're very much in the state of, well, I'll keep that just in case it comes in handy, and it just hasn't come in handy. But of course you have sod's law as well, where the moment you throw this stuff away, you suddenly need it, and that is life. That's the one thing, that's almost like a constant guarantee that I have figured out about life. So yeah, look, here we go. Just a perfectly acceptable piece of cotton. I don't know where that came from, but I obviously needed it at some point. I think that's a piece of cotton that I bought, but I have absolutely no use for it whatsoever now. But yeah, this is all just offcuts of cloth and stuff. Now I could put them on eBay. I could bundle it up together, put it all on eBay, but I'll be honest, selling stuff on eBay these days is such a pain. It really is. I did it recently. I had a few knickknacks and things I wanted to sell on eBay, and just to photograph them and write the listing would take me, like 20, 30 minutes. I'm not very fast in that department. So you're talking about 30 minutes of your time. Then you're constantly babysitting the listing, and you put something up, you get, I don't know, 15, 20 pounds for it. By the time eBay have taken their fees, by the time you've bought packaging material, the money on the postage, And then you have to make receipts for everything because I do my own taxes, so I have to account for every penny that comes in. It ends up you've spent like at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half dealing with this whole thing from start to finish. And you end up with about £5 in your pocket. And it just, it doesn't pay. I mean, obviously if you've got a big ticket item, then yeah, it can pay to put it for sale. It's worth the effort. But when you're talking about small ticket items, like things like this, and unless you just want to spend hours and hours dealing with them, then it's just not worth it for the sake of a few pounds. But the thing is, I need a plan to deal with this so I don't have to think too much about it, because you start thinking too much and it makes your brain ache, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of people, I'd imagine, have like cluttery houses, because when they look at this stuff and they think, well, do I throw it away? Do I sell it? Do I give it away? Who would want this? It just becomes this cycle of stress. I mean, it becomes stressful to have to think about these, and sometimes people just think, oh, I can't be dealing with that, you know. It just causes stress and aggro, sort of having to think about what to do with stuff. It sort of seems like sacrilege to throw it out, but sometimes, I don't know, sometimes it just seems worth it just to get that big black wheelie bin and just dump it all in there, be brutal, walk away, and with the attitude, well, you know, I'm not going to miss it, put it that way. If there's something here that I'm going to miss, then yeah, that'll be problematic. But this stuff, like I say, it's been sat in that box up there for years. Yeah, nearly 3 years since the thing's been here. And I think I may have dipped into it once or twice on a project that I was doing at the time, the sort of project I would never go back to. Actually, I've just had a thought. I know they've got recycling centres dotted all around the town, and they've got clothing banks, but do they actually want actual clothing, or do they just want material and textiles? I may have to dig a little deeper, but it's all just things that are going to take my time. I've got to look up these things. It's all a bit of a faff. But anyway, that's going to be my life for the next quite a while, I think, for the foreseeable future. But yeah, I'm going to have to start getting rid of some of this, start emptying things out, and then, you know what, I really am warming up to that idea of just moving everything out and starting again. I may do that, or start from scratch again. I mean, the only things I want to save are a place to sit to do work. I use this a lot. If I've got to do anything fiddly, whether it's, you know, a little bit of soldering, a little bit of gluing, a little bit of whatever, then I sit here at the table. It's just the perfect height. These things, they make really good under cabinet or under work surface things. It's just the right height to sit at, very comfortable. But yeah, I need this. I do need knick-knack drawers. These little knick-knack drawers are really handy. I do use them all the time, although whether I need that many, I don't know, because there are a whole bunch of drawers there that have not been used. And there's a whole bunch of things here that I don't know, never likely to go near again. Got loads of stuff up there which is just like containers and empty, just containers that are like too good to throw out, but then once again they're taking up that volume, that space, which is encroaching into the volume of the house, the available airspace, if you like. So a lot of that's going to be going to the plastic recycling. Yes, but anyway, my brain's aching just thinking about this. So I've got things like, got a sewing machine here. I think the last time I touched that was, I don't actually remember. It was it must have been at least a year ago, maybe 2, but it's not something you get rid of because at some point you will need one of these. So what I've got to do is just get a little bit more efficient with where to store these things in such a way that I can have access to them as soon as I need them. But I'm wondering if some of this stuff can go into the loft room. I've got well, several bedrooms in this house. One of the bedrooms is a dedicated loft space because I don't have a loft. My loft was insulated a number of years ago, and the insulation is like this deep, and it's made it completely impossible to store anything up there. So I built a bunch of shelves around one, like the far small spare bedroom, and anything that would normally go in a loft is in that bedroom on one of the shelves. So I could put things like the sewing machine and maybe even the air compressor in there, and that will free up a little bit more space in this room. Don't know. The old grey matter's really sparking up at the moment with these ideas. But yeah, I think the best thing I can do, it's going to be a big deal. It's going to be a massive job. But I think the best thing I can do is to sort through all of the drawers and the cubby holes and the storage spaces, get rid of anything that I'm not going to keep, and then move everything out and then move it back in again with some space for the little podcasting area, assuming making the podcasts actually works and is actually a thing. So many things to think about. In fact, my brain's aching. I'm going to have to go and make a coffee. Cheers. Oh yes. So there we go. I think thus concludes another little pottering around video. Thank you for all of the feedback and comments that you guys have been giving me on my previous videos. It really does help. I cannot stress how good it is to receive those comments and hear back from you guys, to get your feedback and your thoughts and your ideas. And often many of those ideas do go to helping me shape the future of the channel and some of my future endeavours. So please do keep those comments coming. I may not necessarily always have time to reply to them, but as long as it's got a little love heart next to it, you know that I've read it. I do read all of the comments, and they are very, very appreciated, so thank you. But if you've got any ideas about a way forward, perhaps, you know, especially with the podcasting idea, you know, do feel free to leave your thoughts in the notes below. So there we go, that's it for today. So thank you for watching. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care.